If nothing else, this'd be no easy win for Dennis.
He'd done it. He'd proved himself a worthy heir to his father's kingdom.
His dream was about to come apart.
This thug of a guard frog wasn't an easy kill, but it was a sweet one. Their leader, Lanzalut, had never been bested in battle. He had a lance as lethal as it was legend, but he also had the only key. The Bog Brothers clan were finally destroyed. Reggie knew they would not be the last. foul corpse of Blocky Magoo lay lifeless on the floor. He had croaked his last orders. Frogs ended up buried in this revered place. More of his father's secrets. But for now, he had found the book. The other mysteries would have to wait. Reggie wished King Rattus were with him, to explain these creatures being here. And, if he were being honest, because he missed his father's reassuring presence. Buzzing, then the stench of rotten meat. The Mozzie King had come for him. He wasn't the only king with a sting in his tail. With the king dead, hopefully the waves of Mozzie infestations would slow down. The Mozzie Queen, foul mother of the swarm, never stop what she With the mother dead, that should be the last of them. For now. Frogs were dealt with, and Reggie had felt no rumbling monster. But sighting the war chief had made Reggie realize they needed to prepare for an attack. The king was needed in the fort. The switch that gave electricity must be beyond this room. But they'd have to get past the grub mother first. She was the one infesting the mines with her grublings. finally stopped buzzing, she and her young would infest this place no longer. This strange device was a blaster. Molecraft more deadly than most bows. And she wondered what the smith would think. Blasters make short work of most enemies. The king could get used to this. The fighter they called Macho Mole was a crowd favorite. Many a mole has lost their head to the brutal swing of his axe. Victory in the arena felt good. Maybe Reggie could learn to like this. This foe was called Mole Mysterio by the crowd. Wondered what name the crowd would give him if he returned to the arena again. Reggie didn't know what this creature was, but its teeth and claws were as sharp as they were fast. Reggie wondered what this fear was. Fear? Or despair? It was dead, and Reggie could barely believe he'd survived. He hoped this would be the last one he encountered. He died as he lived, defending Ratford from the scourge of frog-kind. The guard captain had truly earned his place, entombed alongside kings. Double trouble means double gold. As Reggie cut the final combatant down, the crowd cheered his victory. Bloodthirsty though it was, he had grown fond of Moletown. The Molberg shield was thick and heavy, crafted from the strongest plate metal. Getting past it would not be easy. Heavy shields make for slow targets. Slow targets make easy gold. The arena champion, Hulk Mulgan, was a living legend of Moletown. His legend might have to live on without him. Arena champion, King Demolition. They cheered. One legend had died, but another had come to take its place. Too late. Reggie saw from the docks his brother's silhouette on a ship, surrounded by tribal frog soldiers. No sign of their foul leader. He had to get to his brother. Reggie had little trust in shamans. There was more mystery in this world than his father had taught him. The shaman had gone, but he'd left a key. Another of these fanged and clawed creatures. But if he could kill one, Reggie reasoned, he could kill two. The Rangers were wrong. The creature was real, and nothing about its size was exaggerated. Sometimes a tall tale is worth hearing. The shaman had tried to hide in his workshop. The things he'd made and used on Reggie's kin were here. There was nowhere he could hide. The shaman's cruel experiments were over in a puff of foul green smoke. The war chief's throne room could not be far. He was the one who started this, so it was with a sword in his skull that it must end. What was this evil twist on Molecraft? A grotesque monster of creaking gears and steam. The sight of it made Reggie freeze. But Jay's fury could not be held back. The sound of his small friend's body falling lifted the spell. Reggie didn't know what this thing was, only that it would die screaming. It was no beast, but his own brother in the evil machine. This was the frog's final insult, to turn his own blood into his unwitting enemy. But Dennis knew where the war chief was. Ashamed and angry at what he'd done, Dennis ran ahead, wanting to spare Reggie this fight. Even in the frog slime and its stench of death, it felt good to be fighting with his brother at his side. No, Reggie wouldn't believe it. Everything the evil frogs had taken from him, his mother, his friend, his kingdom. They wouldn't take his brother, and they wouldn't take him. The war chief was dead, and the kingdom saved. But what did it matter if his brother was gone? Rabbits of white whiskers had sent their most agile warrior. It would take more than a hop and a skip to overcome the formidable raiders. Gray Ears put up a hearty challenge, but his grand hops were no match for Reggie's iron will. Captain Blacktail, a treacherous pirate, notorious for his adventures across the three seas. Reggie wondered if he was as fearsome on land. Scurvy sea rat put up a good fight, but Reggie thought the captain might be better off sticking to the ocean. Dennis had returned with a vengeance, fully armed to the whiskers. He'd already lost one tournament and was determined he wouldn't lose another. once again felt the bitterness of defeat at his younger brother's paws. Eivor was an old ally of King Rattus. Side by side, the pair had fought frog scum together many times. Could Reggie live up to his father? Eivor was here to find out. Admitting defeat, Reggie knew he had passed the old rat's challenge. The young rat truly was the people's king. Rat, half-frog abomination must have been the work of his father. Reggie wondered whether this was the source of all the undead in the crypts. Another of King Rattus' secrets, best kept hidden. Taken refuge by an old statue and was getting some much-needed shut-eye. Reggie only meant to wake the bard, but his shout awoke the zombified remains of Mausamoto Muslashi. Mausamoto was a legendary swordmaster. Reggie hoped to get one more lesson before putting him to rest. From Mausamoto when he was alive, but now his dual blades had fallen silent forever. Reggie directed Amy to the Crimson Keep, glad to have found her safe. As soon as Reggie set paw in the Hall of Books, he knew something was wrong. Something in the shadows, quieter than a mouse. It was Thang Boom, an infamous warlord known for his brutality with a halberd. Bang Boo finally laid to rest, Chetty scooped up pages of the Book of Immortal Song. With a nod of thanks to Reggie, he scurried towards the surface. After all they'd been through, Reggie hoped the young bards gave a historic performance. Not a herd, but Crocus Khan. This fearsome Toad King rode his lizard steed into many a battle, but this would be his last. Frogs can trace their lineage to the great Crocus, but this old toad would sire no more. With Crocus defeated, Johnny and Bertle thanked Reggie for his help. Reggie hoped in the future they would find safer and less pungent places to trade. The rocks of the Glimmer Mines glowed with a blue light unlike anything Reggie had ever seen. Reggie wondered what the moles would make of this place. The Squirrel Elder's lifeless body lay on the floor, the priest at his side. Before Reggie could approach, he found out why they were trapped here. This was the nest of the Beetle Queen. Rose with a yelp. He'd been entranced from the ritual smoking of extra potent bright moss. Unaware, he almost became the Beetle Queen's snack. Thanking Reggie for the rescue, they headed back to begin the festival. The shrine of the tapped root stood before him, but the root looked damaged. Before Reggie could wonder what had done this, he got his answer. A root worm, bloated and enraged by bright sap. Had been banished from these parts for generations. Reggie had a feeling its presence meant something was rotten in the state of bright fur. To Reggie's dismay, the tap was broken. Reggie did not look forward to returning to the Squirrel Elder with no sacred sap and news of rootworms. The frog squatter was none other than General Hack-Hack, no better than a common thief looting supplies. The only thing he could take today was his last word. seems he wasn't the only one here for vengeance. Shield Maiden Yellowtongue was waiting, screaming the name of her fallen brother, War Chief Greenward. Echoes of her last croak, Castle Dre was returned to peace. There was a shrine in the room, carved figures of Reggie and his enemies in bright fir forest. The frogs had planned it all to lure him here. Reggie was wrong. These mudbirds could eat the cobra and still way through extinct monster guts was not how Reggie expected today to go. Still, the head of a legendary mudworm to adorn his royal bedchamber would be no small reward. Seb led them to the scrapper's location. They had been harvesting materials from the corpse of the Grub Queen. If the Grub King saw them, bulk food. Too late. The Grub King had returned for the culprits and found Rick and Seb. The Scrapper team thanked Reggie for saving their lives, but were even more grateful to have a fresh corpse to butcher. Reggie sighed. He was just glad there were no more grubs. The Stalker Queen and a fresh brood of eggs. For the trend being late today. Exhausted, Reggie stood over his defeated foes. He had truly earned his status as a legend of Mole Town. He wondered if he preferred glory to duty. Mohammed Moli made a name for himself with his swift feet and swifter paws. Reggie could roll like a hedgehog and pounce like a bat. This swift-pawed champion was as light-footed as any dancer of the Bolshevik ballet, but not nimble enough to overcome King Demolition. Reggie's renown in the arena brought challengers from every corner of the known ratdom. From the cold rivers of the north came the brutal Billy Von Dam. Even this beaver's bite wasn't enough to stop King Demolition. Reggie wondered if he'd gained any fans among the beaver folk. The Grub Buster armor was Molekind's ingenious defense against even the most vicious grub bites. Reggie wondered how he'd stand up to his sword. The plate armor of the Grub Buster suit didn't stand a chance against King Demolition and his trusty sword. Reggie wondered if the moles would make him a Frog Buster suit.